Imagine a mapmaker whose ink isn't made of carbon and water, but harvested from glowing fungi deep within the earth, whose parchment isn't paper, but the cured skin of a creature that died peacefully in the stratosphere. This is the story of Elias Thorne. In his home city of Oak Haven, people called him a madman, but to the lost souls scattered across the multiverse, he was the only one who could chart a way home. His desk was a chaotic collection of impossible instruments, sextants that measured the weight of a shadow, compasses that pointed not to magnetic north, but toward the strongest nearby memory. Elias Thorne didn't just map places. He mapped feelings, dreams, and the very fabric of reality. Today, his gaze was fixed on the greatest challenge of his life. He whispered its name, his voice a dry rasp, the Uncharted reach. It wasn't just a place that was unmapped. It was a place that was still unformed. To map the impossible, you first have to accept that physics is merely a suggestion, not a law. Elias stepped off his airship, the Aurelia, and his boot landed not on rock or soil, but on a platform of solid cloud. In the first layer of the reach, gravity was consensual. If you truly believed you would fall, you fell. If you believed you could walk on mist, you could. He took out his quill and began to sketch, but the landscape itself was a cartographer's nightmare. Mountains didn't stand still. They drifted like icebergs in a sea of violet haze. These were the shifting tectonics of the dreams. He quickly learned the rules. When a dreamer in the waking world felt a spike of intense fear, a jagged new peak would erupt from the mist. When a child laughed with pure joy, a valley would smooth out into a meadow filled with singing grass. Elias couldn't use degrees and minutes for his coordinates. Instead, his map was plotted in emotional resonance and lunar cycles. His work wasn't just geography. It was a form of cosmic psychology. As he ventured deeper into the reach, the sky darkened to a bruised, deep indigo. He had entered the Great Current, a vast atmospheric highway for the cosmic leviathans. These were beings of unimaginable scale, miles long and glowing with internal nebulae, like galaxies given life. They migrated from the core of the universe to the fringes of the void, and mapping their routes was the key to survival. In Tier Woke, they left stability corridors, precious pockets of space where the laws of physics would behave normally, but only for a few hours. Elias watched one of these majestic creatures pass, his quill flying across the parchment. Leviathan passing, he noted. Species. Void below, trailing a wake of oxygen and crystalline ice. Safe passage for 3 solar hours. He realized that these leviathans were the true architects of this realm. Their songs carved canyons into the ether, and their deaths birthed entire archipelagos of floating stone. To map them was to map the very heartbeat of the universe itself. He then descended into a biome that defied all logic. A forest where the trees were made of frozen lightning, captured in time. This was the Forest of Whispers, a place that reacted not to universal laws, but to the mapmaker's own mind. As Elias walked, the forest mirrored his own memories. He saw a river flowing upward, and its water tasted of lost childhood summers. He saw animals with skin like stained glass, refracting the light of stars that had died billions of years ago. This presented the ultimate challenge for a cartographer. Objectivity. How do you map a place that changes every time you look at it? A place that reads your own thoughts and projects them back at you as reality. Then, Elias had a breakthrough. The secret wasn't to map the land itself, but to map the rules that governed the land. He began to draw the underlying loom, the invisible threads of energy and intention that held all these illusions together. He was no longer mapping a place. He was mapping its source code. Next, Elias steered the Aurelia into a region where the very air felt thick, almost like invisible syrup. Here, the geography was built not from rock or earth, but entirely from sound. Huge, floating landmasses vibrated at specific pitches, creating a world of sonic topography. A deep, resonant C note manifested as a rugged, granite cliffside. A high-pitched D created delicate spires of glass that would shatter if the wind blew just a little too loud. The cartographer must be a musician here, Elias wrote in his log. He abandoned contour lines and instead drew musical staves on his maps. To navigate these singing archipelagos, He had to play a flute. The right melody would solidify a bridge of sound between two floating islands, but a single flat note could be disastrous, turning the ground beneath his feet back into liquid air. Here, he met the resonance, a tribe of beings who had no eyes, for in a world made of sound, there was nothing to see that couldn't be heard. They taught him that the impossible physics of the reach were simply different laws of vibration. It was here that Elias made a profound discovery. "I have found the source of the north wind," he wrote. "It is not a current of air, but a continuous, haunting melody played by the friction of two moons rubbing against the atmosphere." He even mapped the Bolam shadows, places where total silence acted as a physical wall, impossible to pass through without losing your very sense of self. Leaving the soundscapes behind, Elias entered the temporal Here, the tectonic plates weren't made of rock, but of different eras of time. In 1 square mile, the ground was lush with prehistoric ferns. Take one step to the left, and you'd find your boots crunching on the scorched soil of a post-apocalyptic desert. To map this required a 4-dimensional compass. Elias had to track not just where a mountain was, but when it was. He watched an entire mountain range grow from a pebble to a jagged peak and then erode back into dust, all in the span of a single hour. "The landscape is breathing," he marveled. He realized the entire dreamscape was a massive, biological supercomputer, a world constantly trying to calculate every possible version of its own history, all at the same time. He began mapping the glitch ridges, areas where time had looped on itself so many times that the geography had become a jagged, crystalline mess of repeated moments frozen together. Finally, after years of travel, Elias reached the core of the world, the great engine. It was another cosmic leviathan, but this one was not migrating. It was stationary, ancient, and its colossal body formed the very foundation of the entire realm. Its ribs were the mountain ranges. Its veins were rivers of molten gold. Its slow, rhythmic heartbeat was the pulse that gave dreamers in the waking world their imagination. Elias's journey took on a new meaning. He hadn't been mapping a world. He had been mapping a living god. He spent months exploring the inner geographies, charting the Leviathan's neural pathways, which looked like glowing forests of underwater coral. He learned that every line he drew on his map was felt by the creature, like a gentle caress. But if he made a mistake, the world suffered what mortals would call a natural disaster, a tremor of the Leviathan's heart. After what felt like a lifetime, Elias reached the edge of the known dreamscape. Before him lay nothing but a pure white void, the literal edge of the page. And in that moment, he understood the true purpose and the true sacrifice of the cartographer's dream. It wasn't just to see the worlds, but to sustain them. Without his maps, these impossible places would dissolve back into the chaos of the unformed mind. His lines were their anchors. His ink was the glue holding them together. To finish the map, Elias discovered a heavy truth. A map is only complete when the mapmaker becomes a part of it. He sat on the edge of the void, dipped his quill into the essence of a dying star, and instead of drawing on the parchment, he began to draw on his own skin. He mapped the constellations onto his arms and the rivers onto his chest. He merged his own consciousness with the loom of the world, becoming the final anchor. Months later, the airship Aurelia was found drifting aimlessly in the cosmos, empty. On the captain's desk lay a single, finished atlas. When the sailors who found it opened the book, the pages didn't just show images, they projected entire dimensions. To look at the map of the Forest of Whispers was to hear the trees whispering your own memories back to you. To touch the page showing the cosmic leviathans was to feel the chilling cold of the void on your skin. Elias Thorne was gone, but the worlds he charted were now real. By mapping the impossible, he had given it the permission to exist forever. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this journey into the impossible, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell to join us on our next expedition into the worlds of imagination.